They thought a single ship might come, maybe a medical shuttle, or some half-hearted diplomatic envoy offering thoughts and prayers. Nalari 6 was a fringe colony, small, peaceful, and politically irrelevant. So when the Korth Dominion invaded, enslaving families and leveling towns, the galaxy barely blinked. The distress signal, weak and old-fashioned, echoed into space like a whisper in a storm. Most species ignored it. The ones who heard it dismissed it. But Earth heard, and Earth doesn't do half measures. Within hours, the void cracked open, as humanity's war fleet descended from the stars, not to negotiate, not to delay, but to end the suffering. 200 ships, millions of tons of armor, weaponry, and fury. What the Korth thought would be an easy conquest became a lesson burned into history. When you hurt the helpless, humans don't send aid. They send everyone. The signal no one expected, Nalari 6, was a colony most maps didn't even bother to name. Situated in the gray edge of the Zorthan Confederacy's influence, it was a planet known for its agricultural exports and tranquil settlements. No major trade routes, no military installations, no political leverage, just people, mostly farmers, and scientists trying to build a quiet life in the stars. So, when the Korth Dominion launched their surprise invasion, the planet's limited defense grid lasted less than 3 hours. With no planetary shield and only a token force of security drones, the Korth swept through the northern hemisphere, capturing cities, burning fields, and transmitting a chilling ultimatum across local space. Nalari belongs to the Dominion. Resistance is extermination. A desperate technician, hiding in the ruins of the local communication hub, managed to send out a wideband distress signal. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't even modern. The signal was piggybacked on an outdated frequency still used by a few fringe species, primitive, they said, one of them being humanity. The Zorthan Confederacy received the message. They acknowledged it with silence. The Galactic Council received the message. They marked it low priority. But humanity received the message, and they remembered Nalari, memory of deaths decades ago, when humanity was still finding its feet. Among the stars, Nalari 6 had hosted a human refugee group during the closing stages of the Tharnan conflicts. Earth had been stretched thin, resources were scarce, and politics were brutal. A small Nalari outpost welcomed over 2,000 human civilians without expecting anything in return. It wasn't an alliance. It wasn't a treaty. It was simple kindness, and humans don't forget kindness. So when the signal reached Earth, specifically a monitoring outpost on Titan, the logs were flagged by an AI watchdog protocol named Argus. Argus categorized the signal as a legacy reciprocity ping, an ancient classification from Earth's early expansion era. Human diplomats had quietly programmed such labels into their systems just in case old friends ever called in a favor. By the time the signal reached Admiral Elena Vargas, commander of Earth's defense fleet, the information had already been verified. Nalari 6 had no functional orbital defenses. Ground casualties were estimated in the thousands. The Korth Dominion was known for their ruthlessness, and more importantly, they were known for targeting the weak. Humanity had changed over the centuries. They had grown powerful, technologically advanced, and diplomatically cautious, but some instincts remained. When Vargas stood before the Terran Assembly, she needed only one sentence. They helped us once. Now it's our turn. The Assembly vote was unanimous. No debate, no delay. Earth was coming. Strategic response, not revenge, many alien. Species, even allies, believed humanity to be impulsive, emotional even. But behind the fire of their morality, Earth's response was always deliberate. Strike Fleet Orion was mobilized within 6 hours. Comprised of 200 warships, 4 carriers, 30 cruisers, 18 stealth frigates, and 2 dreadnoughts, it was one of the largest single-task deployments since the AI insurgency. But it wasn't a reckless show of power. Earth didn't send the fleet to destroy indiscriminately. They sent it to end the situation, contain the threat, and rescue survivors. Commanders reviewed orbital scans, estimated survivor locations, and triangulated Korth strongholds. AI war planners, modeled over 300,000 scenarios to identify the path with minimal civilian loss and maximum operational control. The fleet's arrival wasn't just military. Medical, logistical, and terraforming support teams were embedded in every ship. Earth wasn't just bringing guns, they were bringing life back. Still, the message sent to the Korth was unambiguous. Withdraw from Nalari 6. Release all captives. Submit to Galactic Tribunal oversight. You have 12 standard hours. The time. Korth laughed. They were about to learn why Earth's enemies rarely laughed twice. The fleet arrived in Nalari space with synchronized precision. Not a scattered drop of ships, not a flurry of panic. Instead, a calculated occupation of orbital vectors, shield interlocks forming a sphere of protection around the planet. To any observer, it wasn't a military reaction, it was a statement. The Korth, confident in their orbital superiority, launched preemptive strikes. They didn't get past the first defense perimeter. Within minutes, Earth's defense AI systems had mapped every Korth ship's movement pattern. The TNS Dawnbreaker, Earth's flagship, coordinated a tactical net that isolated each Korth vessel. One by one, they were either disabled or destroyed with non-nuclear precision. No civilian zones were hit. Even the ruins of the communication tower, where the original distress signal was sent, were avoided. But down below, the worst had already begun. Boots on the ground on the surface, Korth soldiers enforced labor camps with brutal efficiency. Survivors were corralled into containment zones, guarded by drones and electrified barriers. Any resistance was met with public punishment. That changed when Earth's drop pods rained from the sky. The human soldiers, exosuit-equipped, AI-assisted, and trained for rapid urban operations, landed like thunderbolts. Within 30 minutes of orbital deployment, they had retaken 3 major settlements. Human combat doctrine emphasized protection. Civilians were escorted under full cover to safe zones established instantly with prefabricated bunkers and medical triage units. The Korth weren't used to fighting an enemy that treated civilians as sacred. They weren't used to losing ground this quickly either. By hour 8, Earth controlled 40% of the planet's surface. The Korth began broadcasting surrender terms. Earth didn't respond, not because they wanted revenge, but because the operation wasn't finished. There were still children unaccounted for. The girl in the transmission, inside one of the last camps liberated, a soldier named Lieutenant Mark Barra found a hidden audio recording device. It was old, barely functioning, but the voice on it was the same one that had been heard in the distress signal. A girl, no older than 12. Please, if anyone hears this, they're taking us. They say no one will come. But maybe someone will. Mark handed the device to Admiral Vargas personally. The message played once again on the bridge of the Dawnbreaker. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the Admiral ordered a final sweep. Every square kilometer, every signal, every heat source. Searched. They found the girl, alive, weak, but still holding the transmitter. When she was brought aboard the medical frigate TNS Mercy, she said softly, "You came." And a nurse answered without hesitation, "Of course we did." Galactic reaction news traveled fast. As Earth's fleet mopped up the last Korth resistance, recordings of the liberation spread across networks and diplomatic channels. The Galactic War. Council convened an emergency session. Representatives demanded to know why Earth had deployed so much force. Why had they risked open war with the Dominion? Why had they spent resources, risked lives, for a planet that didn't even belong to them? Admiral Vargas answered via live transmission. She stood in her uniform, unshaken, beside the girl from the message. Because someone asked for help, and that's enough. The silence that followed was historic. Some delegates applauded, others left the chamber in shame, but the message was clear. Earth had redrawn the lines of intervention, not for territory, not for profit, but for principle. And, suddenly, the galaxy realized there were still giants walking among the stars. Aftermath and balance, the Korth Dominion filed a formal protest. They claimed Earth had no jurisdiction. They claimed Nalari was outside Earth's defensive treaty zones. But they didn't declare. War. Because they couldn't. Their orbital fleet was in ruins, their ground forces shattered, and their political capital tarnished. Earth didn't press the advantage. No ultimatums, no annexations. Instead, they submitted all military logs and medical reports to the Galactic Tribunal. They opened Nalari 6's airspace to international observers. They sent engineering units to rebuild infrastructure and provided unrestricted aid to all surviving populations, Zorthan, hybrid, and native. Even the Korth prisoners were treated according to interstellar law. No torture, no disappearance. Just due process, because this wasn't about punishment, it was about setting a precedent. Earth had acted with force, yes, but also with restraint, precision, compassion. That combination scared many empires far more than brute strength ever could. Humanity's legacy. The years that followed, many colonies quietly upgraded their emergency protocols to include human distress channels. Some diplomatic offices updated treaties, adding clauses that permitted emergency human assistance. Even, the Galactic Council amended its charter, creating a new, moral obligation provision. Unofficially none.